Longer, brighter days. The weather turning. But what are you going to wear? Quince has you covered with a sensible approach to modern essentials. They focus on well-made pieces and premium fabrics, European linen, organic cotton, and denim that manages to be both structured and genuinely comfortable. Their spring collection is particularly easy to wear. Lightweight, breathable pieces that look sharp without trying too hard. Take their ultra-soft denim jeans, for example. Nicely tailored, supportive without being stiff, and comfortable from the first wear. And yes, the price does tend to prompt a quiet double check. That's because everything at Quince is better value than other luxury essentials brands. They work directly with ethical factories, so you're paying for the quality itself, not the label attached to it, or the middlemen along the way. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/truespies for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/truespies for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/truespies. This episode contains adult themes and strong language throughout. This is True Spies, the podcast that takes you deep inside the greatest secret missions of all time. Week by week, you'll hear the true stories behind the operations that have shaped the world we live in. You'll meet the people who live life undercover. What do they know? What are their skills? And what would you do in their position? I'm Rhiannon Needs, and this is True Spies from SPYSCAPE Studios. February 2022. The village of Milova in the southeast of Ukraine.
Milova is the middle of nowhere, Ukraine. One paved road, about 400, 500 homes, donkeys pulling carts.
It is in this donkey and cart village that an American expat by the name of Kirillo Alexandrov lives.
Kirillo, at the time, was a 20-something-year-old kid. He's living with some family there. He was a watermelon farmer. Living by all accounts, a meager life, but a good life nonetheless.
A good life that is about to be interrupted in the most dramatic fashion imaginable. On February 24th, Russia invades Ukraine. From his spot close to the Crimean border, Kirillo has a front-row seat to the assault.
Where he was, right on the Dnipro River, was the invasion corridor for the Russian invasion in the south. The Russians come pouring in very, 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 very fast, hundreds of thousands of them, like cockroaches, tanks, and all kinds of stuff. They put a Russian brigade headquarters, like in the town, in the fields, with a full encampment with tanks and storage and all kinds of stuff. Because it's in the middle of nowhere, it's close to the river, it's right off the main highway, it's in a good spot strategically from a military perspective.
In the blink of an eye, Kirillo, an American citizen, remember, is stranded in occupied Ukraine.
He had asked the embassy in Kiev for help. They told him, get to Poland and we'll help you. No kidding, right? He didn't have a car, didn't have a lot of money.
And so his only option is to stay in place and hide.
So he was in hiding in this teeny tiny village. Hiding in a city is easy. Hiding in a small town is very hard. And he's trying to figure out what to do. His mother saw us on TV doing Afghanistan stuff and had registered with us.
It's at this point that I should introduce you formally to the true spy who is about to brazenly march into the middle of this crisis.
My name is Bryan Stern. I'm the CEO and chairman of Grable Rescue, a veteran-led, donor-funded international rescue organization, a 501c3 nonprofit based in Tampa, Florida.
Though right now, Bryan is speaking to you from an undisclosed location, all part and parcel of the unique line of work that he finds himself in. Bryan Stern and his team at Grey Bull are specialists in exfiltrating Americans from highly volatile contexts. There is likely no one on the face of the earth better equipped to help Kirylo Alexandrov escape from Ukraine. And fortunately for Kirylo and his desperately worried family, Bryan Stern has seen this conflict coming. He is already on the ground in Ukraine as the invasion comes, ready to do what he does best and usher those caught in the crossfire to safety. But that does not mean that retrieving this lone, scared American citizen will be a cakewalk. This is the outbreak of war, after all, and war is chaos.
Comms were up and down. Finally, we make contact with him, and he explains kind of his situation. He's in very dire straits. He does not know of a way out. They're completely cut off, and because of the communications piece, he doesn't really understand where the front line is. He doesn't know if Kiev is fallen. He doesn't know a lot of things. There's lots of rumors of propaganda and all kinds of stuff. So it's a mess.
And it's about to get a lot messier.
He gets spotted by a neighbor who, to curry favor with the Russians, rats him out to Russian intelligence. He's taking a shower. An arm comes into the shower. It's a Russian, and he's dragged before the whole village naked, beaten in front of the whole village, and arrested for espionage.
It's at this point that a difficult extraction becomes an all but impossible one. Kirylo Alexandrov is no longer a watermelon farmer caught up in a war that has nothing to do with him. He's an accused American spy, being held by the Russian military. And yet Bryan Stern is still determined to find a way to rescue him, whatever the cost.
Ultimately, I do it alone. My board had fired me. They turned off all my credit cards. My wife turned on me. Everyone turned on me, saying, basically, he's being held by the most sinister intelligence service on Earth for espionage in the middle of a war. You gotta lose sometime. And it's not for lack of trying. Bryan, you did your best. This ain't happening.
But Bryan? He looks at this impossible situation and he sees it another way.
There's only 3 possible outcomes. They kill him, they kill me, or we win.
This is True Spies. Red rag to a grey bull. Before we step any deeper into the mission that drove Bryan Stern to the brink of reason, we should first find out how he ended up here in the first place. To understand the world that Bryan moves through, he'll need to lead you through the twists and turns of a remarkable career. One that begins to take shape as twin plumes of smoke fill the sky in New York City, and only reaches its final form 2 decades later in the bomb-scarred streets of Afghanistan. Specialist in war zone rescue operations is hardly a job that you circle in the back page of the local paper. And even if it was, Bryan would have been an unlikely candidate.
I don't come from a military family at all. My father was a lawyer and a judge for a minute. My mother was in finance for a long time. The military is very often a legacy thing. So your father, or your uncle, or your brother, or a close family friend. I didn't have any of that.
Nonetheless, when he was still a teenager, Bryan joined the U.S. Army Infantry.
Which is like carrying a rifle, regular soldier. Then I became a mortarman, which is indirect fire infantryman. But my time there was very limited. I got recruited into Army intelligence right around 20 years old. I wasn't legal to drink yet. Specifically,
Bryan was recruited into counterintelligence.
So I become a CI guy, and this is the late 90s and early thousands, and there wasn't much going on, honestly. It was kind of boring. I was a very junior guy. I was just a kid. This is 25 years ago already.
Which happens to be exactly the moment that the entire world of counterintelligence was turned on its head.
I found myself working in New York, and the morning of 9/11, I had an office right in the World Trade Center. I had an office at 6 World Trade and 7 World Trade. We had offices at both. And people flew planes into buildings. I was in both collapses, and I've been at war pretty much ever since.
9/11 marked Bryan's true entry point to a field that would shift dramatically over the coming years.
I find myself doing operations all over the world. Some really sexy and interesting, some not so much. But I tended to work on hard things, hard problem sets, hard targets, hard underground facilities. counterproliferation, which is very, very, very hard. Finding some bad guy with a shovel who's digging an IED is significantly easier than dealing with business. The husbandry agents of ports who are violating sanctions and fake end-user certificates and all kinds of other stuff.
As the years ticked by, Bryan amassed an incredibly rare skill set.
Being, true counterintelligence guys, it's not a job, it's a lifestyle. Literally down to stupid things like when do you put your seatbelt on when you get into your car? All kinds of little weird idiosyncrasies that go into that world.
Cut to the year 2021, and Bryan has, at long last, retired from active duty.
This chapter of my life was behind me. I was done. I left government full time. I had a small consulting company, making lots of money, living life.
In other words, Bryan has already walked off into the sunset. But the world has other plans for him.
So what happened is it was August 2021, and I was asked to give a speech for the 20th anniversary of 9/11, which was just a few weeks later.
At the time, the US military was going about its protracted withdrawal from Afghanistan after 2 decades of conflict.
And the withdrawal of Afghanistan is not going well, by anyone's accounts. It's not a political thing. I think the withdrawal of Afghanistan has become a case study of how not to do evacuations.
When Kabul falls to the Taliban on the 15th of August, the already frantic withdrawal becomes pandemonium.
I had friends of mine, relationships that I had, sources that I knew, commandos that I fought with, all kinds of stuff, calling me and asking me for help.
With each new call from some stranded source, Bryan could feel himself being pulled back into that world.
It was like a dog whistle for me, because that's just my style. But I told myself, pump the brakes. This chapter of your life is behind you. The days of you going to sandy places and getting diarrhea are in the past. And I'll write a check. Surely there'll be the United Association of the Fraternal Brotherhood of whoever is for the Afghan relief thing, and I'll donate.
But that line of reasoning could only endure so much. The breaking point would come a few days later.
I was watching Fox News, and I'm working on my speech in my living room in Florida. And it's breaking news. It's a C-17 taking off from Kaya, from Kabul Airport, and Afghans falling from the plane. And I say to myself, what fucking planet am I on? The last time I saw that was on the morning of 9/11, 20 years later, almost to the day, and I'm writing about it in my speech, almost like a God wink. How am I writing about this and watching it, caused by some of the same people, I might add?
In his Florida living room, Bryan Stern finally accepted the inevitable.
And I said, okay, well, I tried to resist, but that didn't work. Let's get the band back together.
This spring, what will you be wearing? Quince makes it surprisingly easy to refresh a wardrobe with pieces that feel effortless, comfortable, and properly put together. The kind of clothing that works without much fuss, which, frankly, is what we all want. They use premium materials, 100% European linen, organic cotton, and soft, well-structured denim. Think lightweight linen trousers, easy dresses, and simple tops you can wear on repeat without a second thought. Now, their European linen shirts are worth mentioning outright. Clean, breathable, classy, and hangs exactly as it should. The sort of thing that tends to get noticed, in a good way. And because Quince works directly with ethical factories, it's all priced fairly compared to similar brands. No middlemen, no unnecessary markup. All in all, a very efficient way to make a good impression. Whether or not you take the credit is up to you. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/truespies for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada, too. That's QUINCE.com/truespies for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/truespies. Over the next few days, Bryan assembled a team of old contacts from his counterintelligence days. He found that there were lots of others like him, anxious to help.
Lots of veteran groups started doing things. Lots of different folks came out of the woodwork. It was really beautiful to see. We called it Digital Dunkirk. It was all these different groups and stuff that set up chat rooms and Signal and trying to move people around, move things around and coordinate stuff. And that's all fine, well and good.
But Bryan knew that remote efforts could only help the evacuation efforts so far.
We were a little bit different. We went. Nobody went. We were the only dumbasses that went. So we launched to Uzbekistan.
From Uzbekistan, Bryan and his team could coordinate along the narrow border to Afghanistan on the south.
And at the time, there were Marines at Kabul airport, and the Air Force and NATO were flying planes in and out.
So Bryan's initial rescue plan hinged on a simple mechanism. Direct your rescue target to a nearby Marine with a pre-established password for identity confirmation. The Marine escorts the target to the nearest airbase, into the safety of an Air Force plane out of Afghanistan.
That was the game. And that went on for a while. I don't know, 2 weeks or so. And we're running, we're gunning, and trying different things. We know a lot of people. Everything's working all right.
Then, a bombshell.
The Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State get on TV, and they say that August 30th will be the last day U.S. boots on ground in Afghanistan.
Effectively announcing a hard deadline to any of those handy Air Force flights out of Dodge.
So what are we doing on September 1st? What's the plan then? Because clearly, people are going to be left behind.
Bryan knew it was about to become much harder to get his Afghan sources out of the country. What he wasn't worried about was American citizens.
There are whole units, buildings of people, of really angry men, covered in tattoos, who are humongous, who wake up every single day and they go to the gym and they go to the range and they eat a lot and they do all these things to rescue Americans in crazy places. Surely, we would not leave American citizens behind. The problem is I was dead wrong.
As the deadline hurtled ever closer, it became abundantly clear the United States had no real plan for how to retrieve the US citizens that would be stranded beyond the final withdrawal of troops. And so Bryan would have to take it upon himself to solve that problem. And the way he saw it, there weren't many options to choose from.
What we did is we figured out, we did very advanced level intelligence work here. Okay, we assessed with very high confidence that Afghanistan is a dump. And we assessed with very high confidence that they're going to need outside help. And there's only two ways to bring things into Afghanistan, because it's a landlocked country, by land and by air. And the borders are currently closed. So probably they're going to need to fly things in by air. And because of that, this is advanced level intelligence now. There'll be some guy, some dude, who's going to be the Taliban Minister of Civil Aviation, whatever they call that guy, right? So we spend a bunch of time trying to figure out who that might be. And we find ourselves with a list of 6 characters.
6 rising Taliban stars who might make the cut when roles in the new administration are being doled out.
So we found all 6, made friends with all 6, before it was announced, before anything, banking on the idea that one of the 6 will be the guy. Turns out we were right, and it was like our 3rd or 4th draft pick, gets picked, and now we already have a pre-existing relationship with the brand new Minister of Civil Aviation of the Taliban.
A handy friend to have, if you're attempting to pull off the impossible. Because Bryan Stern's plan is to fly an Airbus A320 directly into Taliban-controlled Afghanistan, load it up with American passengers, and fly right out again. If your eyebrows are raised, well, you're not alone.
There was a guy who was kind of the point man on the Afghan task force for State Department. A guy by the name of Jim, who's a good man. We were introduced to each other through a mutual friend. He gave me a lot more attention than he gave to other people, probably. So we find ourselves at a moment of inflection where he says, Bryan, I love you to death. I love you, but there's no way you're landing a plane in Afghanistan. Maybe you land one. You're definitely not taking off, and you're definitely not taking off Americans. He says, I'm busy. I've been sleeping in the office. We're trying to get people out. It's a mess. It's all screwed up. Basically, your plan is so dumb, I can't give you any more calories. Call me when you have a good plan.
By this point, you should know enough about Bryan Stern to make a fair guess of his response.
I said, I remember you said this, Jim. We'll do a gentleman's bet for $1. I'm going to land an airplane. I'm going to take off an airplane. There's going to be Americans on it, and all the other things you're working on isn't going to amount to the buffalo poop on a nickel.
Naysayers be darned. Bryan pushes ahead with the plan. He secures a permit from his friend, the newly minted Minister of Civil Aviation for the Taliban.
That allows us to land an Airbus A320, 147 seats, in broad daylight, and we pull out 117 American citizens in one shot, under the Taliban's noses, with their permission. So not breaking laws, not cowboy, lots of tradecraft certainly, and 2 scoops of manipulation and 1 scoop of deception. But at the end of the day, they cleared us to land. They cleared us to take off. We processed 117 people through Taliban immigration, kinda. And that happened 2.5, 3 weeks after the military left.
And what about Jim in the State Department? Was he as good as his word?
October 1st, he gave me $1. I still have it.
What Bryan has just described is the inaugural operation of Grey Bull Rescue.
That set the stage. That was 809 missions ago. Okay? 8,700 some people ago.
After pulling off such an audacious rescue, Bryan soon found himself with a reputation.
What happens is people keep calling. We were doing operations in Afghanistan well into 2022. This is now months after the military is gone. Months. The Taliban are now shooting people in the streets and cutting heads off and going full bananas. And we go back to Kabul, which was probably not intelligent. We're the first people to go to U.S. Embassy Kabul after the fall. We walked around the whole thing. I have imagery and pictures that you just won't believe. We went shopping in Kabul, is nuts.
Nuts, maybe. But then there's no handbook for this line of work. Bryan's greatest asset is a career's worth of counterintelligence intuition. In many ways, that was all he had to work with.
You don't learn this stuff at the Q course to become a Green Beret. You don't learn this stuff at BUDS when you become a SEAL. Those guys, God bless them, they have a job to do. That job just isn't this. Green Berets and Navy SEALs, all they want to do is jump out of airplanes and shoot people all day. That's not this. In the intelligence world, we're unarmed, outmanned, outgunned, outfunded, outspent. It's whatever you got in your pocket, and hopefully the relationships that you built are good enough to keep you alive. And they were. So we were working the streets of Kabul like we own the place.
But before long, Bryan's attention would be pulled in another direction. Because while the long conflict in Afghanistan was, for better or worse, reaching its uneasy conclusion, a new geopolitical crisis was looming in Europe, one that would require an entirely different set of skills from Bryan and his team at Grey Bull. January 2022. As the world still licks its wounds in the aftermath of a global pandemic, trouble is brewing in the East.
So what happens is this lunatic named Vladimir Putin thought it'd be a good idea to put a couple 100,000 troops and tanks on the border of this small country called Ukraine. So he starts doing the buildup, and at the time, everyone said maybe yes, maybe no. Well, that's because all the people saying that have been looking at people named, Ishkan, Bible, and Muhammad for the last 20 years. People like me, who understand the strategic side. I was on Fox News. It was like the first week of January. I was like, 100% Putin's coming. We need to get ready. Budapest Accords. We gave Ukraine NATO-like protection.
In other words, America needs to prepare to defend Ukraine from Russian aggression. Because as far as Bryan was concerned, aggression was more than a possibility. It was a certainty.
You can't put that many troops in the winter, on the cold, in the field. It's very expensive. They get cranky. I was a soldier too. You put 500,000 troops in the snow on the border, they're coming. This is an investment in time, money, and equipment and people. They're coming.
For Bryan, this was more than just a talking point on national news shows. It was a call to action.
So I flew into Ukraine before the first shots were even fired. Me and a couple of dudes fly into Ukraine, into Kiev, when you could. The idea was we were really successful in Afghanistan at the tail end of a mess, of a dumpster fire. Imagine what we could do if we got there early.
Bryan knew he would only have so much time before the situation escalated. He needed to act fast.
So we took the map and we looked at the map. And again, this is like advanced level intelligence analysis here, right? We said, this country is huge. There's Russians to the east and there's Russians to the south. So probably there'll be an eastern front and probably there'll be a southern front. And they're going to drive like this and try and get as far as they can possibly get, with Kiev being the target probably. So then we said, well, the east is a mess and it's always going to be a mess. So let's kind of leave that alone. Let's focus on the south and let's build infrastructure and rat lines and mechanisms where you can go all the way from the south, from small places like Mariupol and Melitopol and Berdansk and Kherson and Zaporizhia and all these places that you see on TV. We went to all the Odessa. We went to all these places because we could. There was no war yet. It was no big deal. And we built infrastructure with pipelines all the way to Kiev, all the way to Romania, and all the way to Poland.
Bryan and the small team at Grey Bull were under no illusions about the scale of the opponent they were about to square up to.
Russia has the best, excellent intelligence in Ukraine. They have an excellent SIGINT capability. They have an excellent drone capability, which has now become very prevalent. They have excellent surveillance, excellent intelligence, excellent reconnaissance. They can kick our butts if they want to because their technology is so good.
But Bryan had spent much of his career operating in the Middle East, and his experiences in that conflict, against forces with threadbare resources, had taught him something vital.
The way the enemy fought is go simple. Don't send emails. Use couriers. Use rudimentary tactics. Use old school tactics against new threat. And maybe, just maybe, we can be effective and stay alive doing it.
It was the very same approach that he brought to Ukraine in those chaotic weeks at the start of 2022. So when Bryan Stern's prediction became reality, he was ready.
Missiles landed right around 5:30 in the morning, February 23rd, 2022. And as missiles landed, literally with a push of my cell phone, a text message, energized the network. And in 58 minutes, we had over 20 Americans out of Kiev, already on their way out in under an hour. And so the mechanism worked.
And just as he had planned for, Grey Bull's reach extended far beyond Kyiv.
Then the invasion starts, and our super secret spy network finds itself exactly where a good super secret spy network should find itself. 200, 300, 400 miles behind enemy lines, reporting in, fully functional, getting tasked, being responsive, communicating.
But even with Grey Bull's network fully up and running, some of the targets that land on their radar in the early days of the war are beyond their reach. Such is the case with Kirilo Alexandrov, the American watermelon farmer stranded near the Crimean border, who you met at the very beginning of this episode.
He's arrested for espionage. 11 counts of espionage are proffered against him, and they take him into interrogation, and he starts to be tortured.
When Kirilo is discovered and arrested in Milova, Bryan recognizes an age-old FSB tactic at play.
They arrest everyone as spies. Everyone's a spy. The FSB, Russian like FBI, are incredibly professional. They're very competent. They're not a bunch of dum-dums. And to the extent that they're competent, they're also very creative. So they can create truth, like so many security services in the world, including Americans. So you have to be mature about it a little bit. But 11 counts of espionage for a watermelon farmer who's a dumb kid, yeah, it's a little bit much.
From the moment of the arrest, Kirilo Alexandrov became Grey Bull's #1 concern in Ukraine, not least because of the ordeal that he was subjected to by his captors.
Interrogated, tortured, beaten, mock executions, They would say, we don't need any more justification. We know you're a spy. We're just going to execute you right now, put him on his knees and fire a bullet past his ear. So a lot of mental torture, a lot of physical abuse, physical torture.
Yet even in those unimaginably dire circumstances, Bryan knew that Carrillo's situation had the potential to get worse.
He knew that if he made his way to Moscow, that's a 20-year problem, or a 5-year problem, or a 10-year problem that probably I can't handle. So the name of the game was figure out creative ways to get it to be the Russians' idea to keep him in Ukraine.
That meant opening a line of communication with the Russians and pushing for a swift resolution before the FSB had time to ship Carrillo back to Moscow.
We immediately go to work and try and negotiate, because a negotiated release is better for everybody, right? Better for the bad guys, better for the hostage, better for us.
In matters of negotiation, Grey Bull is playing with a decidedly limited hand.
We don't have a whole lot of money, we don't have a whole lot of leverage, but they don't know that. So I can make some promises and probably welch on those deals, probably. But geopolitically, I don't care because I'm a nonprofit. So I'm not worried about a treaty violation because I don't have that. That's not us.
And so a peculiar game ensues. Bryan speaks directly to the FSB in Moscow. He gives them reason after reason to release Carrillo before the situation spirals. To that end, he considers it his obligation to be creative with the truth.
I'd lied to them about all kinds of stuff. An example, Carrillo's stepfather is a retired full captain in the Navy who worked at the Pentagon. And I got the Russians convinced that he was the personal aide of General Milley, who's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And I have personally spoken to General Milley, and he is going to send Navy SEALs to come and kill all your men. And I use it as do you want the first American troops on the ground supporting the war in Ukraine for a dumb American kid that you and I know is not a spy that you charge with espionage? Is that how you want World War III to start?
In reality, Bryan had had no such conversation with General Milley. Whether Milley had even met Carrillo's stepfather was by no means certain. But like all good lies, this one hinges on its proximity to a verifiable truth.
I banked on the idea that they have a pretty good handle on who's in the military because of Russian cyber activity. They hack into OPM, they hack into the databases, so they can figure out that Carrillo's stepdad was in the Navy. And they could probably have a good idea that he worked at the Pentagon, probably. They probably couldn't know what he did exactly, and it's certainly plausible that he worked for General Milley. And they know who I am, and they know that I know generals and admirals and stuff, so it's definitely plausible that I spoke to General Milley. So this is all very plausible. And 18th Airborne Corps and like 500 Navy SEALs and a bunch of Green Berets are sitting in Poland at this time, trying to figure out what to do. So I'm like, look, I just came back from Poland. I briefed them myself. They're going to come here. They're going to slaughter your men like sheep. Your men have been getting their asses kicked by Ukrainian grandmas. Now the 82nd Airborne Division is going to come. They're going to fuck you up real bad.
Soon enough, Bryan's brazen strategy begins to pay dividends. Moscow is sufficiently spooked by his threats, so much so that they order Carrillo's release, which should be the end of the ordeal. But it isn't.
It becomes very apparent that the people holding him won't let him go. And we don't know why they won't let him go, but it becomes very obvious. Moscow is directing them to let him go. And then they come up with an excuse not to. Then they direct him again. Come up with another excuse not to. And for the life of us, we couldn't figure out why.
One theory that Bryan toys with is that the unit on the ground will only release Carrillo if they get someone more valuable in exchange.
He's being charged as a spy for committing espionage. Well, I'm a counter-intel guy. I am a spy who also commits espionage. I don't know. Maybe this is about me. I dangle myself out there. I'm not cavalier about it, but I literally find myself days and weeks later where I'm at the last checkpoint, totally alone. I got $150,000 in a bag by myself, and I'm FaceTiming the bad guy saying, here I am, let's bring him to me, and here's 150 grand. 150 grand's a lot of money for Russians at that time in particular. They were having a hard time finding food and all kinds of stuff. So that's a lot of money. They wouldn't even come and just kill me and take it.
Soon enough, it becomes clear to Bryan that the unit holding Kirillo are operating entirely outside the reach of Moscow.
I have recordings of the guys in Moscow talking about the monkeys that are handling this, these idiots. What's wrong with them? We're telling them we're going to have to do something about this. And as soon as this war is over, there's going to be hell to pay.
Moscow reassures him that they will get to the bottom of the stalemate. But Moscow's reassurances mean nothing to Bryan.
They truly believed that we could get there. Well, I truly believe that we couldn't get there.
And so it's time to begin mounting Plan B.
So, I negotiate to keep up appearances for 37 days. What nobody knew is I was building my own heist.
By the middle of April 2022, Bryan Stern was sufficiently convinced that the only way he could secure Kirillo Alexandrov's release was by breaking him out of captivity himself. It was a line of reasoning that he found no sympathy for among his usual support network.
By the time it happens, my board had fired me. They turned off all my credit cards. Everyone turned on me. My wife turned on me. Everyone turned on me, saying, basically, he's being held by the most sinister intelligence service on Earth for espionage in the middle of a war. You gotta lose sometime. And it's not for lack of trying. Bryan, you did your best. This ain't happening.
But Bryan was determined to push ahead regardless, even if he had to do it with the scantest of resources.
Central to the scam, this is an Ocean's 11 style heist. This is not Black Hawk Down with hand grenades.
For the operation to stand a chance of survival, Bryan would need to draw deep from the well of counterintelligence tradecraft. Never had a mission depended so entirely on his playbook.
Number one, knowing how they target, how they do things is really important. That's why being a CI guy is so cool, is because we spend all of our time worrying about the enemy. It's all about the bad guys. I'm trying to understand them, sure, but the point of counterintelligence is to have an adverse impact on the enemy. What I do from a counterintelligence perspective is I get the enemy to do things seemingly to be their idea that is advantageous for us. That is true counterintelligence, and that's exactly what happened with Kirillo.
The first phase of the operation involved gathering as much intel about Kirillo's surroundings as possible. And fortunately, there were two clear windows of opportunity approaching.
In Eastern Europe, there are two Easters. There's the regular Easter and then the second Easter. And what we did is I did rehearsals. I did dry runs. The first Easter, we did a large rehearsal and collected a whole bunch of data that I was able to exploit about checkpoints and all kinds of stuff. How they work, how they are, where they are, how they talk, what they do, the way runners work, all kinds of different things.
Then, on the second Easter, he stepped it up a notch.
We did a full dress rehearsal. A full rehearsal. And the question was, can I get Kirillo? Can I defeat the first ring? I knew that the colonel who owned the town, he owned the first 2 or 3 checkpoints in each direction. After that, it's somebody else. By now, Kirillo's famous. He's been there for 37 days. He's the only American spy for 10,000 miles in custody by the Russians. So he's very famous. He's covered in tattoos. We tried all kinds of different ideas just to see what would work. We were going to make him a burn victim, wrap him up like a mummy, put him in an ambulance, scoot him past, like that. All kinds of ideas.
There is a limit to how much more Bryan is willing to reveal, because the details of this operation are still fiercely guarded.
Today, the Russians do not know how it happened. They don't have a clue.
What he can tell you is that central to Bryan's plan was another looming Russian holiday, Victory Day, the annual anniversary of World War II's conclusion.
Victory Day in Russia is a big holiday. Every year in Moscow, there's a big air show that happens where each squadron flies their birds over, and it's this whole big thing, and Putin gives a speech, and it's this whole big show.
But in 2022, open source reporting began to suggest that things would be different this year.
There were rumors that the Russians said that the air show may not happen for Victory Day because of bad weather. And the problem was it was expected to be beautiful weather in Moscow. And everybody on the ground, even the Russians, were like, holy cow, Putin is going to send the entire Air Force. The war was supposed to take 2 weeks. This is now 4 or 5 months. It's not going very well. He's very embarrassed. He's very angry. Putin's going to send the entire Russian Air Command to flatten the country.
The prospect of a dramatic escalation sends shockwaves through the front lines of this still young war.
We have videos of the Russians digging bunkers for themselves to stay alive, right? The whole Red Cross evacuated. Everyone runs away. There were Russian soldiers breaking their legs trying to get evacuated out.
But Bryan Stern looked at these reports and saw something different. He saw a bluff.
And I bet that he was full of shit. The history of Vladimir Putin, he has never tied anything to something else. Ever. He's never tied one event to another event. Ever. That's what the West does. That's what we do in the West, right? Because we're stupid. He has never done that before. So why would he tie Victory in Europe Day, which is a moment of national pride, to a thing that's not going very well? I bet that he was completely and totally full of shit. And I was right. The planes didn't come at all. The parade did happen.
Russian forces had been preparing for an escalation. Now, they were looking at a momentary respite. And in the scramble to pivot those plans, Bryan seized on his moment of opportunity.
I got the Russians to make it to be their idea to take a break for negotiations for the holiday. After all, it's a holiday. It's like July 4th or Veterans Day or whatever. So it's their idea. And when they proffer this idea, which is really my idea, I argue with them. They say, look, we're going to take a break for the holiday. No one's going to be around anyway. It's just going to be us talking. There's no one for us to call, no one for us to coordinate or do or try and do things with. Let's take a break. It's been 37 days. Been a long time, over a month. We're exhausted. You're exhausted. Let's take a break. Nothing's going to happen.
Feigning outrage, Bryan agrees to pause negotiations with Moscow.
Victory Day comes. We take a break, so I don't need to be on the phone. I don't need to be anywhere. We dump comms, we set conditions, and we initiate the operation.
Unbeknownst to the Russians, Bryan has been preparing for this moment for weeks.
I had done a whole bunch of things to make it very well known where I was to them, deliberately. And through negotiation, I kept saying, take him from the village. It's 16 checkpoints north. I'm right at the last checkpoint. It's like 40 miles from where I am to where he is. Drive me up. I'll give you a bag of cash. I'm standing here. I'm staying here. Come and get me. Let's do this. Let's do this. This is how we're going to do this. It's one route. I kept saying it over and over and over and over and over again.
Bryan knew that if the Russians were expecting any kind of move on Kirillo, they would expect it to come from this area.
Instead, what I did is we went all the way towards Kherson City, towards trouble, deeper into Russian territory, going the exact opposite direction.
He also knows that when the Russians discover Kirillo's escape, his weeks of ground laying will buy him precious time.
I know that the colonels and the people that are holding him can't call Moscow and say, we lost the only American spy for 10,000 miles. They can't make that call. That is how you get killed.
First, they will try to solve the problem on their own.
So they do their own little manhunt thing. And I know that they're idiots, and their first manhunt, they're going to go, well, we know where he's going. Bryan's here. They start checking in here. Well, the problem is we're not there.
As to where Bryan actually is, well, that's for him to know, and the rest of us to speculate.
Today, if you ask the GRU, they will tell you I took him out by water because I telegraphed my moves and I showcased in such a way that that's how they think I did it, because they can't understand how we defeated 52 Russian checkpoints. That can't be done. There's no way you can defeat 52 Russian checkpoints, and you're right on the water, and we saw you trying to do reconnaissance on the river. Therefore, we can conclude you took him out by water. Well, I guarantee you I did not take him out by water. I wish I did. I didn't. We did the 52 fucking checkpoints, which is a whole thing.
All that you need to know is that Bryan was as good as his word. He got Kirillo Alexandrov through those 52 checkpoints and into safety, all while the local Russian forces were chasing their tails. A feat so unbelievable that it warrants a little gloating.
It's the next day. Who calls? Moscow. And I know that they have no idea what has transpired. I know they don't know. Why would they? Who would tell them anyway? So they call, and we have this moment recorded. It's one of the best moments ever, where they're like, they call me Boris. They go, Boris, how are you? Is good to see you're okay. And this is when everyone thought that Putin was going to flatten Ukraine. So they were very worried about my safety, ostensibly. They say, good to hear that you're alive. Let's keep going. And I go, negotiations are suspended. And they go, what do you mean? The operation is over. They say, okay, but what do we do about Kirillo? And I go, I'm looking at it.
Yes, very funny, comes the response from Moscow. But seriously.
What do we do about the kid? And I go, listen to what I'm telling you. I'm looking at him right now. There's like 8 of these guys standing around a cell phone in Moscow on speakerphone. This very senior guy says, Boris, you've been a good man this whole time. 37 long days. Now is not the time to play games. We're so close. Please, don't mess around.
Bryan assures Moscow that he agrees. The time for messing around has passed.
And I go, look, you know what I look like because I know that you know, right? And they go, yeah. And I go, you know what he looks like because you sent me his proof of life picture holding up the photo, right? And they go, yeah. And I go, hold on one second. And on the side of the road, we take this picture. And I send it to them on WhatsApp. And they all, what you hear is, oh my God, what, how, what?
In that photo, Bryan Stern and Kirillo Alexandrov beam for the camera in close-up. Triumph writ large on their faces.
And I go, yeah, we're already in Poland. We're halfway to Warsaw already. I'll call you next week. We got more business to do. And I hang up the phone. Now, really, we were still in Ukraine. But let them go try and chase me somewhere else.
This moment of glory still stands proud in the Grey Bull history books, though it has since been joined by many, many more.
We've done 809 missions. Some of them are large, extravagant, big airplanes, loud. Some of them are Ocean's 11 style heists. And we've done a lot of them. Maria Corina Machado, Terry Gately, John Spoor. We've done Gaza. We've done Lebanon. We fought Hezbollah. All these different things. And the point is, if you have the guts to try, and you don't take no for an answer, and you commit and you resolve yourself to the idea of success is a choice, it's remarkable how much is possible.
Kirillo Alexandrov is living testament to that ethos.
2026, Kirillo is my friend. We're extremely close. We have a very weird relationship, Kirillo lives close to me in Florida. He lives 10 minutes from my front doors to this day.
Even when Bryan's own team turned against him, he knew that he could not give up on Kirillo.
Why? Because his mother sat on the border for 37 days. His mom flew from Detroit and asked everyone. The FBI came and visited her house in Detroit met with her when he got arrested. The FBI gave her a challenge coin, a military challenge coin, and said, if he ever gets out, give this to him from us. That constitutes the entire contribution of the United States government for Kirillo.
Even in the fog of war, Bryan Stern had the clarity of vision to see things for how they were. If he didn't save Kirillo, then no one would.
Now, fast forward, the FBI and the Department of Justice, because of this case and the intelligence that we collected, brought the first indictment for war crimes in the history of the United States against the guys that tortured Kirillo. And they didn't even mention our names, which is funny.
It is this point, above all, that still irks Bryan about the operation.
So let me understand this right. Your contribution was a challenge coin to his mob, but yet you all gave yourself promotions and awards and bonuses for his rescue, which they had nothing to do with. There wasn't even a government employee at the border. Not a State Department, DOJ, no one. There was not a single government employee at the border when we crossed. And Carrillo hugs his mother. The government didn't even send an intern. Nothing. To me, that's the real sin. That's the real sin. Carrillo is the first American victim of war crimes alive since World War II. And literally no one from the United States government has ever even said, welcome home. That's a mistake, is what I would say. And that's a very big reason why I do what I do.
When Bryan Stern sees that injustice, that's a red rag to a grey bull. Join us next week for another close encounter with true spies. Disclaimer. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the subject. These stories are told from their perspective, and their authenticity should be assessed on a case-by-case basis. If you're enjoying this podcast, please click now to give it a 5-star rating or leave a review. Ratings and reviews help people discover the podcast and help us bring you more great stories. And if you have some time, why not forward the podcast to a friend?